Hello and welcome to Chapter 8 of the CLV Revolution virtual book tour. My guest today is also a dear friend of mine and a true companion since I started my customer lifetime value journey. Formerly known as the CLV lady, Juliana Jackson used to work with me in crafting the CVO category, and she handled the product and go-to-market initiatives for our product OmniConvert Reveal. Since we've parted ways, she made an amazing job, and nowadays she is an amazing speaker, podcast host, and product advisor in the field of mobile apps and product data. You better stay with us to learn how to acquire customers in the current competitive landscape, how to persuade non-data savvy old leaders with data-driven arguments, how to prioritize the customer value optimization initiatives, and of course, have some fun hearing a few backstories about how naive we were when our CVO adventure started 6 years ago. So, Juliana, thanks for joining me into this endeavor, into this virtual book tour. And how you've been? What do you think about the book, about everything?
I'm very excited to be here today with you, Valentin, to talk about the most important part about your book. Like, how do we make things happen? How do we put action into all the beautiful words that you have in the book? I was very excited when you finally got to write it, because I know how much time, and even when I was there, how much time was invested into this book, how much pain and tears. So honestly, today it's really, really humbling for me also, because we both kind of went through the same experiences for a lot of part of the book. When I was reading, I was like, okay, I remember this time, I remember this time. And I'm actually really proud of you for getting to this point and being able to take this to the finish line. I wouldn't have done it because I'm all over the place, but that's another story for another video. So yeah, I'm excited about the book. I'm excited about the fact that you were able to make all the strategies happen for different organizations, and how you kind of expanded your service line. When we broke up some years ago, it was mostly, like kind of like took another turn into mobile apps and to other types of retention strategies. So for me today, the most important part of this video right now is to know, how did you make this happen for different businesses? So today I want to talk to you about how you take action on all the strategies that you have in the book. And I know you have something about the prioritization model. We're going to talk about all that. But first, I want to ask you, how do you feel after pushing, the envelope for so long with customer lifetime value?
Yeah, so to be honest, initially I was deluded and naive to think that everyone will adopt it and everyone will have a strategy around lifetime value because I've opened everyone's eyes. But reality pushed me like in that Mike Tyson quote, right? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. The good news, though, is that there is progress, and there are companies which are adopting this strategy around customer lifetime value model. And the bad news is that those companies are not that small, which I think it was let's say, unrealistic expectation from me and for you, to be honest, because we've been, let's say, exploring these things together. We've been talking with a lot of brands, a lot of e-commerce, a lot of retailers around this. And nowadays, looking back, it looks like mid-sized to large companies are best qualified to take action, to look on the long term and to tackle this customer lifetime value. There are different stages of maturity around the customer lifetime value. There are companies which are simply doing this type of ad hoc reports and they are simply measuring it. There are companies which are monitoring lifetime value. There are companies which are having some sort of actions and noticing what was going on with the customer lifetime value. And at the latest maturity phase, it's about the process itself. It's about having different people within the company coming up with initiatives around customer lifetime value, having a calendar of ideas and initiatives around the CLV, and let's say sourcing this from various departments of the company. And in order to take action, I think it's crucially important to for the leadership teams to understand what's in it for us. And we've been discovering this, that there is also a politics game, to be honest. So if I'm not incentivized in my position in this huge organization of thousands of people, if I'm not incentivized to improve lifetime value, what's in it for me? Why should I do it? So these type of things should be revisited by the leadership teams to talk a bit strategically. But if we are to talk about, okay, let's presume that everyone does this already and they woke up to this new reality, it's a matter of constant prioritization and setting KPIs, not towards improving it, but towards experimenting, towards improving it, which I think it's a very important nuance here, because many leaders are not that well trained into data. A lot of leaders are at an age where, let's say, they've earned the place to steer the company, but they are not so data driven, to tell the truth, because they coming up with a data driven narrative to a person which doesn't get data. It's a very important let's say endeavor. In many times it's an uphill battle.
But I would say that it's also in our responsibility as strategists, as consultants, as analysts, whatever we call ourselves today, is to educate the leadership about the value of data, because there's so many big or large organizations that spend thousands and I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars collecting and analyzing data, but the truth value comes from people that are capable of speaking that value of data. So that happens when you're able to map data and analytics with business goals and outcomes and North Star metrics, just like in the case of customer lifetime value. So, Valentin, I know we have 6 types of CVO, customer value optimization initiatives, to go through today. So I want to get started with a little joke about acquisition. I was on Twitter yesterday, and one of those guys that are doing acquisitions was making fun of people that now are just waking up to retention, and they're saying retention is the new acquisition. And to me, that's always funny, because it's like, if you compare like which matters most, acquisition and retention, is like you're asking yourself, should I have an arm or should I have a leg? What's better? So both of them, you need both arms and legs to be a functional human being. So I want us to start talking about, how do we acquire customers? How do we better acquire customers to make sense in the the full spectrum of the CVO methodology?
Yeah. So as you've said, the acquisition is crucial. For instance, if you, no matter what you're selling, without customers, you have no one to retain. So it's like, what is more important, to get married or to keep the marriage going? I mean, both are important, right? You can't keep a marriage going if you don't have a husband or a wife. I mean, for God's sake, it's
some people might do it. Like, don't forget about, there's cases, but never mind.
Yeah. All right. So in order to acquire the best customers, it's always about the data. So it's always identifying the ideal customer profile. It's always about doing the things in the first chapter. So let's presume that you've identified your best performing customers. You've made this triangulation around the product, around the customer, and around the messaging behind the product. I mean, the why behind buying a certain product. So if you know all of those 3 things, it's time to put them into action. So acquiring these customers, it doesn't mean that, hey, let's stop advertising to the wrong customers, because that's simply dumb, to be honest. It's about fine-tuning and experimenting with different messaging, with different landing pages, with different, let's say, instead of pushing products, maybe you can push outcomes. Maybe you can even experiment on your website around certain outcomes. Like, I want to be more happy. I want to get immunity. I want to get this type of outcomes which are behind using a certain product, which that could be an experiment which is oriented towards acquiring the right customers, more valuable customers down the line. And once you have this type of acquisition campaigns, and once you have this type of alignment, because it's not stopping at this data research, as you've said, Juliana, it's around teaming up with the acquisition teams, with your PPC agency, with your maybe with your merchandising team, to come up with better or new products, depending on your merchandising. So it's mainly around orchestrating a strategy around the data that you've acquired and continuing to experiment. The downside of these CVO initiatives when you do acquisition driven by the customer lifetime value is that it takes longer than just looking at the first transaction, depending on your buying cycle. And that's why, as I've wrote there in the book, acquisition campaigns are vital for long-term performing, long-term consumer goods, right? And are important as well for slow moving, for fast moving consumer goods. So that means if you are selling, I don't know, coffee, tea, whatever, food, then you can see the purchase cycles being affected by your experiments and by the way you acquired customers. If you are selling mattresses or whatever, you might need to wait for 5-7 years to see if that had an impact in the purchase frequency itself. So for those type of customers, it's more about doing your best so that you turn those customers into advocates and evangelists. So it's about this residual customer lifetime value that you can activate through your existing acquired customers. Because if you provide outstanding value, undeniable value to your existing customers, even though they buy long-term usage products, they might amplify your brand. So I think that's around the acquisition.
So one could say that all the efforts that you do, if you apply the customer value optimization framework, the efforts that you do with research, with bringing a type of qualitative component and those attributes to data, it's probably just giving context to your advertising agency or the people that you have in your team into the why behind people purchase, or like what is the quality of the cohorts they're bringing. So it's kind of like just giving that extra type of insights into, just what you see in ads manager or meta or whatever. It's just having more context into
Yeah.
the purchasing part, like answers to the why. That's really cool. I always like that, and I think now more than ever it's very important to add this type of unstructured qualitative data to the mix, because you don't know, like you just don't know. So you need this type of context to make better decisions when you invest money to target different people. So kind of like for me, CVO, when it comes to this acquisition part, is like kind of putting an end to endless automation and mindless targeting. You just want to, you want to have more precision, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So let's say we acquired these people, right?
One more thing, Juliana, around acquisition, and sorry to interrupt you, so that the audience will get this. So it's around better messaging, informing your agency, but also giving them, let's say, the guardrails around the products which are more impactful. For instance, if you have products, and we've seen this over and over again, if you have products which are more valuable down the line but have the same AOV, that means you can afford to pay more to acquire those type of customers. So that's why things like value-based bidding could help, so that you can acquire better customers. So that's how you turn the ship around. And we are living this highly competitive times right now, where you need to do outstanding things to have good results. So the competition is so high right now that you can't afford to neglect some aspects. The game has changed, and that's why companies need to adjust to this new reality.
That's why we have so many CLV ladies these days. but but that's in 2020 when we were talking about this. No, I agree, and I know you have something coming on VBB with Dag and Zorian, and I'm very excited. I won't say more than this, but it's really cool. Cool. But okay. So Valentin, I'm here. My role is to keep you focused, because I want people that listen to this right now to write down, like what are all the steps they need to do to implement CVO, the CVO framework into their workflows. So, okay, we acquired these people. Let's say we had the magic wand. We had a good acquisition campaign. We have some amazing customers. What happens most of the times is, these people end up dealing with our websites once we acquire them. Like, it's one thing that we get, like call people to the website, but what happens most of the times is they are faced with a very shitty experience when it comes to onboarding, be it their experience being onboarded on the website. Because I want to like give a bit more context here. So there's two types of onboarding. For sure is the onboarding you do via email, via I don't know, your flows, but it's also like that first impression with the brand. And I can tell you from experience, because I work only with large brands right now. And the thing is that you invest so much money, you do very, very good targeted campaigns, you do all the right things, but when people come to the website, their first experience is bad. So you kind of lose people instantly. So there's two types of onboarding that we're talking about. So I know in your book you said something that you have to ensure that these people that you acquire continuously get value out of you to stay with you longer. So let's talk about onboarding.
Yeah, so onboarding is somehow neglected and also misinterpreted. So many e-commerce and retailers think that onboarding happens automatically. So if I've just sent a confirmation email, and if I've just sent the customer satisfaction survey, my job is done. But the true reality is that few are the companies that know exactly when their customers can be considered onboarded. And my perspective here is that the onboarding phase is ending when the customers are already mindlessly buying that product from that company. When you have the habit, which is happening unconsciously, because up until that moment they are still in that zone where they can migrate to a competitor or choose another channel, another alternative than you. So that means you have to consciously craft experiences at all these touch points so that you increase this chance to place the next order. And you can look at these graphs, which are already in the book already there, to see what are the chances for a customer to buy the next order after the first, after the second, after the third. So depending on the type of business that you have, you might reach that level at 70%, let's say, after 5 orders, or you might reach that level after only 2 orders, depending on the power of the brand as well. Because if you, I don't know, if you are like Decathlon or whatever, big Patagonia, whatever, where the brand is present everywhere, right? So you can't neglect the fact that that brand exists. Then the onboarding happens way more faster because the brand value is there. While if you are a new player, then it's an uphill battle. You need to demonstrate this, and that's why you need to over deliver at these touch points. And few are the companies which are realizing that, hey, I can do something about it. And it's not that it's simple, but it's not like the building a rocket science, to give a small dose of dopamine in the package, right? To craft this type of small experiences that are distinguishing you from all the other competitors and all the other brands.
Can you give me an example of one of those? Because I know you worked with so many brands. Like I know you have a great video on the OmniConvert website from Culture Kings, and we would love to know what you guys did together
Yeah,
to support for this type of thing. Because I know they were very happy. So let's tell people about that a bit too.
yeah. If that NDA will allow us, I would surely disclose everything. But I can give you another example from another company that we work with. It's a grocery retailer, and they realize that, hey, they have this drop into their first time customers, even though they were present everywhere. So they've used the shopping list, which they can put on the fridge, and with that marker, which was erasable, right? So they basically they use the QR code. Sorry.
Was it Food Kit by any chance?
No.
Okay, cool. Because they do the same thing. That's awesome.
So basically they use a QR code so that you go directly to the checkout, and you have the items that you can't forget, and every time you go to the fridge you can see that happen. So there are all sorts of small things that you can do. Another thing that one of our customers did was to use this type of incentives to, based on the first party data, so they knew what the product was all about, and then based on these 4 different routes they were selling vitamins and stuff like that. So based on this, they gave them uh, uh, some sort of an onboarding based on each of those flows. So mainly It's about helping customers make progress. So if I'm facing insomnia issues, help me uh, uh, make progress towards a better sleep, not only through your products, but maybe through other let's say maybe knowledge or maybe other products that I can get with the at a higher discount. So it's about setting expectations initially and giving them the path towards their desired outcome, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to pay money for something that they will simply own. You want to pay money for something that will change your life for the better.
That's awesome, Valentin. And I know that no matter how creative can you get with onboarding and how many cool things you can do as a brand, and even if you have that, brand equity and you are living, rent free in people's head, shit still goes wrong, right? So this is when a brand, according to the framework that you have, should invest in things like prevention, rewards, loyalty programs, and referrals. And I would like for us, before we get to the reactivation phase, to stop a bit and talk a bit about this initiative. Like, what can we do to integrate this as part of our marketing efforts?
Yeah. So any customer is giving out signals. Now, if the company is blind or deaf around those signals, that's it. The relationship is going to be affected. So it's like in any relationship. If the customer shows you that it's pissed off or through an NPS survey, you should be doing something about it. If the grace period based on the purchase cycle of that particular customer is being let's say outpaced by the last time interval, then you should be doing something about it. So the whole idea is to use the data that you have at your disposal, and one way to do this is around seeing how usually this customer, how many days it took for him to buy again. So and you can't do it let's say like this. You should be doing at the quantity. You should be because if you have enough of your product, let's say, you can't use the averages, and that's where you should be either using like a time interval according to the RFM score. So you can look at customers which are, let's say, in the buying zone. They are like lovers, they continue to buy, and something happens and they change. There are 10 days and they will change the status from lover to about to dump your customer. So in those 10 days, you can trigger some campaigns. And the beauty of this model is that you can build this type of evergreen campaigns, either on the email, SMS, ad campaigns. Even you can call out those customers. Like in the book, it was that example from that Belgian company which hired people from Madagascar because they were like 20 times cheaper, but they talk perfect French, which was their audience as well. So this type of prevention can happen according to how much you can afford, what is the lifetime value, and what is the risk for that customer to abandon your website.
So what about loyalty programs? Like, I know so many people fuck them up. Like, people think loyalty programs, but I think loyalty program and rewards are one of the hardest things to do in e-commerce right now. So what's your experience here? Like, what can we do actually?
Well, we can begin with making sure that we don't miss the first steps towards a good loyalty program, which means, do you actually have loyal customers? Do you have happy customers that could be getting into this loyalty phase? Because if you don't do that, you better do the hygiene first and then the cosmetics. And I think loyalty programs and referrals are cosmetics, are nice to have. I mean, if you don't have acquisition and onboarding and prevention made correctly, why bother? It's like putting lipstick on a pig. So that's with the loyalty programs. That's the main problem. The other problem is that you throw some incentives which are irrelevant for your customers, and then you expect them to come back to buy again. And you can either overspend because you bribe them with some incentives and they would have come anyways, or you're underspending. So you give them some peanuts, and I had this conversation with Brian Eisenberg, and he told me about this company. He paid something like $40,000 on a new roof, and they gave them gave him a $25 voucher. So basically, it's like 0.01% of the total purchase to incentivize someone to do another action.
But this is because companies have poor understanding of unit economics. I think everyone that does massive discounting or like ridiculous discounting or things that do not fit with the average order value or with the monetary value of all the purchases, it's just poor understanding of unit economics. And I know you covered that
Exactly.
in the book. I don't want to talk about it right now, but it's you have a whole chapter about that. Please, e-commerce people, just learn about unit economics. It's gonna change everything that you do. Cool, Valentin. Now we must also talk about these reactivation initiatives, right? So
Yeah.
how do you effectively do it? Because so many people fail at this step.
Yeah, to make a confession here, I was back in the days 2018. I was working with the large e-commerce company. I looked at their data. I realized, wow, they have 600,000 customers, and 520,000 of their customers haven't bought again. It's like, let's apply the first simple rule. If we will convert only a fraction of these 520,000 customers, they will be, I don't know, doubling their revenue next month.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? It never happened. So it's so easy to think that, hey, if they've bought sometime, they will buy again because they bought like 3-4 times ago. And I think one important thing is that recency trumps everything. Out of the RFM, recency, frequency, and monetary, recency is the most important. So because that's how the brains work as well, right? We can't remember. We've got so amazing relationship with our peers from I don't know, high school or university or whatever, but who keeps them in their mind? Who acts on reactivating that relationship if there's no trigger, right? So the beauty of the reactivation phase is that you can do something about it, but that something must be done with around the relationship and around fixing what was broken, because maybe you haven't reached the expectations of those customers. Maybe they simply don't need your product anymore. I mean, you can't reactivate a mother that used to buy baby products when there's no other kid to use those baby products anymore, right? So it's all about the context where the customer is, and in order to make reactivation happen properly, you need to know what you are saying to those customers, how you catch their attention. And we have these techniques down the line in that particular chapter about reactivation. Fact is that you need to prioritize these initiatives.
I want to ask you, Valentin, like, okay, like all of this sounds great. And, in theory, everything is good, but you cannot be everything to everyone. And obviously, it depends again on unit economics and what are you selling and what type of budgets you're rolling with. So how do you know what makes the most sense? How do you prioritize all this stuff?
Yeah, it's the prioritization has to do with the purchase frequency, and because if your purchase frequency is, let's say, 6 on average, that means 6 orders per customer. It's clear that you need to do something after the acquisition, right? So your levers are around onboarding and prevention. If your purchase frequency is 1.2, then it's clear that it's around acquisition, baby. Go there, acquire those customers, because only 20% of them will buy another order down the line. So once you know what is the most important initiatives and where you are leaving money on the table according to the benchmark and according to the product that you're selling, then you can focus on that. And once you do this, it's around looking at the data, coming up with hypotheses, and then prioritizing them based on your resources, right? So how easy it is to do this thing. And that's why I have this PECT framework, right? To give out these scores, which are not like completely comprehensive, and they will show you how much money you will make with this initiative over the other. But it will allow you to give some scores and to have some criteria around the potential, the ease score, the cost, the time, and the impact that initiative will have. And once you have that, you can brainstorm around the things that are the most impactful. Because the beauty is that with a framework, you have people being engaged. You can ask them for their idea, and this is not a solo game. So CVO, it's around not only a team, but it's around a team of teams, because you will need people from the merchandising, from the customer experience, from the commercial departments, and from the online marketing whatsoever. So unfortunately, this is a hard endeavor, even though it's so impactful for the entire company.
True, true, true. And I think also in your framework, one thing I would change or like improve if I can, what I've noticed is working with enterprise companies that do have like the teams, the budgets, and the I guess the backbone to support a framework like this, because this won't work if you have 5 people and you just started selling, drop
Yeah.
shipping and doing a bit of Shopify. But for retailers, what matters to them is how it ties with their business goals. So, for instance, if the acquisition team or the marketing team is focused on AOV and traffic and user engagement, I think what it needs also in the framework is to tie it to their business goals and to their OKI. So I think the importance part is where you can actually go and tweak this to make sense for you from a KPI perspective. I really like the framework. I actually plan to use it myself and try to test it out and then come to you and tell you how it works. But that's what I would tweak.
Or how wrong it was.
No, I think it's cool. And, at the end of the day, it just gives you direction for how to apply these things if it makes sense for you. Obviously, again, as marketers, it depends. It all depends on how your business is structured to make money. What's your profit formula? What are your unit economics? Are you selling subscription? Are you selling just one-time purchases? Are you a big ass retailer? It depends, right? So I think when you read this book, one you'll be I guess you will get all the tools to become successful if you want to implement this framework. But it's also very important for you to understand the business context and the business model and the unit economics, because once you do that, everything in Valentin's book is going to be unlocked because you have that type of business context. So yeah, Valentin, I'm really excited about this. It's been a long run. Like, looking at the date right now, it's 5 years, bro. 5 years since.
2024 already, sister.
Yeah, exactly. It's been 5 years since I've known you, and we've for a good part of all this stuff. I have my autograph here. From you. There you go. Get your autograph. But I think this book is a good start for everyone that is interested into adopting this methodologies and making sure that they're it's like being a customer advocate. Like, our role as marketers and optimizers, strategists, is to be supporting the customer and look for the best, the best nu-mi vine cuvântul în cap, to look for the best interest of the customer. So I think this book is a great start for us to become that type of advocate for our customers. So thank you for having, like, you stopped procrastinating and wrote this book. Thank you for getting it out. And yeah, excited to see what's next. I know right now you're dabbling into new things. Do you want to share with people what you're doing right now with the offline stores?
Yeah, I would rewrite the book. Actually, I would add another appendix for the retailers. Yeah, I think it's the last year opened my eyes towards the fact that we need to focus more on experimentation and cross-channel experimentation and in-store experimentation, because without experimenting and without getting agility for these large companies that have many points of presence, I think they will not be able to thrive as fast as it's required right now from the economic context that they are in. So one thing that we are also working at OmniConvert is to launch the experimentation for in-store, right? So this in-store experimentation, I'm a big believer on that. I think there are a lot of things that you could do. I think that companies will benefit greatly from being more agile. And even though this AI thing is going to come around crunching data, unless you change those freaking products, unless you change the behavior of your actual customers going there to buy the new yogurt that you are promoting, you're not going to move the needle. So you can tweak the messaging however you want. At the end of the day, the product is the most important part of the equation.
Yes, and I've been saying that for a long time myself, so I approve of that message. And yeah, really excited for you, Valentin. I know we were flying from Super Week back home, and the plane had turbulences, and then you dropped this bomb with offline experimentation. So I kind of forgot that I was afraid. So really, really excited about this space and what you're about to do. And thank you for sharing all this stuff with us today. This was a really amazing, session. And for everyone interested in reading the book, you can find the links for it in the description.
Juliana, thanks a lot for being a part of my journey, and not only of this virtual book tour, but I've learned so much, and it was a true joy to find someone so passionate that was with me by my side, discovering, knocking our heads into this area, which is around customer lifetime value. And I'm really grateful for your inspiration and for accompanying me into this journey.
Thank you. I thought I was gonna get those hearts to work on my Mac, but they don't. So never mind.
Yeah. So as for you out there, chapter 9 is right around the corner.